Hello, everyone. This is part one of the Manchester United season review. My name is Nishant, and you're watching the Football Spark. Hi, guys. Today I have with me two die-hard Man United fans, and we will be talking about the manager, the formation, the players. Though, in the interest of time, we will try and stick to the starters and not go too deep into the squad players. We can if we want to. And now the season review is a little delayed, but I think to have a fair discussion, it was necessary to give everyone a little time to deal with the Europa League final defeat. I hope it's out of your system, and I hope we can have a good discussion without any recency bias. So, how are you boys feeling now?
Yeah, as you very well know, Nishant, I took my nice time to get over from the defeat. As much as I could tell myself before the match happened that I just don't care anymore, that we could just lose, and yes, it will all be the same. It wasn't the same. It did hurt, and took quite a while to get over it. But at least now that 2 days have passed, and obviously given the nature of the Champions League final, I feel slightly better now, and feel slightly better composed to be able to think about the Europa League final from a tactical and reasonable point of view, rather than just letting my letting my just fanaticism cloud my judgment. So yeah, I'm feeling much better.
And Gaurav, you had a get together that night, right? So
yeah,
must have been tough.
It wasn't the easiest to take in. Definitely, of course, we're expecting to win. And once we lost the final, and I was really hoping like Chelsea win the Champions League final, of course, in front of Manchester City. But when we actually came to the Champions League final day, I really didn't care who won because I was just so disheartened from the Europa League defeat. And it's been a very, very long time since I felt so bad about something. I felt like the manager and the players deserved it more than anything else. And, we as a club deserved it more than anything else. The fans deserved it because we've supported them through some tough times. But, here we are with an experience of a final, and we go again next season.
Absolutely. That is the hope. Yeah. So talking about the team then, let's start at the back. So what is our goalkeeper situation? Like, was it good to have such a strong backup in Henderson? Or was it confusing that we never really figured it out? Like, who was our number one? Was it Hendo? Was it De Gea? Who was the better choice? And did we do well overall in the goalkeeping department? Gaurav, you can go first if you want.
Okay, that's a very good question. I've spoken to a couple of fans about it as well, to be very honest with you, and I think this is a little bit of a tricky one. Do you have a clear first choice? Do we have a clear first choice goalkeeper at the moment? I would say no, because when they had to go away for personal reasons, we clearly saw that when he came back, Dean Henderson was like the first choice goalkeeper, and we thought that that's what we're going with, and I thought that De Gea was probably the right choice to have in the Europa League final from a squad point of view. And why I say that is because, De Gea had probably played all of the Europa League games after he came back from his, personal leave. And to have him sit out for that would have been like this is the end to my United career. From a fan's point of view, does that make sense? I don't think we're at the right position to judge at the moment because it's completely different atmosphere probably in the dressing room. Do we need to solve the situation in the summer? 100%. I think there should be a clear first goalkeeper, a clear second goalkeeper. Rumor has it that we've probably signed Tom Heaton as like our third choice keeper, and we're probably going to let go of Romero and Lee Grant, and Nathan Bishop will probably be in the reserves. So. Yeah, I think this really needs to be solved. But then again, the rumors are if De Gea leaves, for example, the rumors surrounding United are Jan Oblak and Donnarumma, who are available and on the market. So that doesn't really solve the situation as well if either one of them comes to the club. So this does need sorting out. From my point of view, I think Dean Henderson is the future because he's a young boy. He's shown great promise at Sheffield, and I think he's done decently well at United as well. Where he didn't do well was probably the Liverpool 4-2 game. I think that's kind of taken critics to aim at him.
I was so confused. For me, it's always been De Gea. I think it's too soon to write him off. He definitely deserves the number one position as of now, at least.
Yeah.
If he should be the number one next year or the year after that, I don't know. Next year, maybe. But so I have some interesting stats about that. So I was looking up how their season went. And De Gea has more clean sheets per game, but Hendo has a better win ratio. So he is winning more games. So does that talk about Henderson's, organization of his defense and the ball distribution? And whenever De Gea has the ball in his hand, I'm scared what he's going to do with it. He's just going to dribble it down to Maguire. He's going to give it back to De Gea. He's going to give it off to the side. So is that, something De Gea needs to improve upon, or our defense needs to improve upon? I'm not too sure. So let's hear Anshuman. Let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the communication part goes, I think it's well documented that Harry Maguire, our captain and leader at the back, he likes to work better with Dean Henderson. And as far as I think the both situation is concerned with the two of them, I think David De Gea, as good and as a legend as he is for us over the past decade, there is an understanding, and there is a very reasonable understanding that over the past 2-3 seasons he has been erratic, and he has made very frequent errors that has brought United to this position where they were considering someone else. And Dean Henderson, over the past 2 seasons, has been an absolutely fantastic goalkeeper, albeit for Sheffield United. And I think when you have decided to brought someone like Dean Henderson into the starting 11 at Manchester United, the idea was to slowly integrate him into the team more and more. I think this was a discussion before the start of the season as well, when he was given a new contract. Now, is he now the number one? And the idea at the time was, of course, he's not going to be becoming the number one straight away, because the first idea was he'll give a kick up the backside to David De Gea. So giving him the indication, now we are serious. If you don't perform, there is someone capable enough to take your space. And I don't think this season David De Gea has made horrendous errors. Like you look at them and just think, look at the Kepa errors or Karius errors. Just look at them and go, okay, this cannot work. We need to change it straight away. There have been subtle issues with him. There have been a couple of times where he has just looked fidgety with his movement, like you've said, in the early matches. There was that match against PSG in the ending matches of the Europa group stages, Champions League group stages, where he was slightly delaying in coming out of the way. He did not have that much of an aggression. He was feeling slightly, it felt that he did not have that much of a confidence. So there have been issues with him. There just not have been issues with that much throughout the season. And this was a problem for Solskjaer, because if he is not making open errors, then you don't really have an ironclad face to replace him. So when he went off to Spain to have to witness the birth of his child and be with his family at the time, that really gives Solskjaer an out, a get out of jail free card, because then he could introduce Dean Henderson without really having to make much of an explanation. And at the time, what happened was Dean Henderson started performing absolutely fantastic, because up until then he was playing as second fiddle goalkeeper, and he showed confidence, he showed intent, he showed that he was able to communicate, he showed that he had the right mentality to be able to work at this level. He was all of that, but he was working in the background, and he was really proving that he's just ready for De Gea to make a mistake to pounce. And once De Gea went out, then he came in, and at the time United were leaking goals left, right, and center. This was, I think, early January or February. And after that, we had a brilliant run in which, if we even did not win the match, we were drawing. We are getting clean sheets left, right, and center, which really went a long way to steal our defensive position. And yes, I know in the end of the season we have conceded a lot of goals in the Premier League, but at that time Dean Henderson really proved that he was able to be in a position where he could just topple David De Gea altogether and just be the Manchester United number one. So I think as far as this season is concerned, the idea was always that Dean Henderson is 23, David De Gea is 30, 31. He's getting 3 times the wages Dean Henderson is getting. Solskjaer has always been about, getting the average age of the team right, introducing new blood that in the long run will help for United. And yes, David De Gea is not that old, but compared to Dean Henderson, he's in his 30s. He has been erratic, and the idea with him has been that he's going down. So if you are a manager who is trying to look at all of these situations and you are trying to rebuild the squad, would you rather go with a player who has been here for a while and is going slightly down the hill, or would you go with a player that is still erratic? Dean Henderson is not without the errors. Is still erratic. He's young, but he's he has the intent, he has the attitude. Would you like to build up with him? Because it's much easier if you are manager. It's much easier to build a young player rather than having to work with a player who has been undoubtedly a legend for the club, but who you don't know if it's going to work out or not. And would you rather be in a position where you let go Dean Henderson at a very young age, or would you let go De Gea at that age, given his wage package, given his age, and given his recent record and everything? So it's not as much about whether David De Gea has gone too bad or not. This is more about from a sport perspective, from a long-term perspective, what feels like a much more reasonable and long-term solution for the club. And in that way, Dean Henderson was always going to be a priority. That if he can get in, we will get him in, and he has made a pretty decent case for himself. Yes, the last two matches haven't really been right, and David De Gea, as Gaurav has already mentioned out, he was the rightfully placed in between the stick for the Europa League final, because at this time he had become the second choice goalkeeper. So he had to play in a cup final in that situation. And yes, a lot was made out about his penalty saving record. People were saying that, okay, he should not have played the final. Then there would have been a completely different approach had he not played the final. So yeah, it was completely right for him to play the final. We don't really have an out-and-out number one at this point, because the way Dean Henderson has ended his season and the way David De Gea has ended his. And I think when you have two goalkeepers of equal competency, you really can only stick with them for one season. The easiest example is Chelsea in 2014-15, when they had Petr Cech and Thibaut Courtois at the time. And there was this major debate as to who to continue with, because Petr Cech is undoubtedly a Premier League legend. And there were a lot of fans saying that whether you should stick with him because he has given so much to the club. Again, this question came again. But what had happened? What happened at the end of it was Thibaut Courtois, being young, being more promising, he was kept on the squad, and Petr Cech was let go to Arsenal. And he did not have a bad time at Arsenal, but he was never the same player again. And that is the kind of decisions managers need to take at times. It is not going to be fan favorite decisions. You are going to have a lot of criticism, and you're going to have to live with the consequences of your action. But from a stable point of view, these discussions usually only end in the same time. So, do I say David De Gea leaving? I did not until 2 weeks ago. But right now, positionings are opening up, as you've seen with Juve. Gigi Buffon is now gone. I think Juve would like to take David De Gea over Wojciech Szczesny if they have a chance. So there are options popping up. I don't know. So yeah, that is a possibility. But his wage package is going to be a difficult challenge for everyone, and he has a contract with us for at least 2 more seasons. So despite Tom Heaton coming in, whom I see is a third choice goalkeeper for us at this point, former player and everything, Lee Grant is going, Sergio Romero is going. So I think we are just trying to provide a better option as a number three goalkeeper. He has had 2 major injuries as well, so I don't think he's expecting straight to go into a number 1 slot at the same time anyway. So I think that is essentially that. I can see this going on for at least 1 more season. I still think the onus will be on Dean Henderson. But if he continues to make mistakes, then they will not. Solskjaer will take a lot of time before he dispatches Henderson and brings David De Gea back, because at the end of the day, he has been with the club for a decade. So he will always have fan support for that.
Yeah, and one thing that you mentioned earlier, that De Gea was the right choice for the final. But do you think, was he the right choice for the penalties? Like, should Ole have stepped in and brought in Hendo? Because we all know how great De Gea is at saving penalties, right? So was that the right decision, or would that put too much pressure on Henderson? What are your thoughts on that decision of letting De Gea keep for the penalties?
I think there are 2 things to this. I think Solskjaer's first priority was that we have penalty takers in first, instead of deciding whether this goalkeeper can save. I think Dean Henderson's record compared to David De Gea in penalties is better. Yes, absolutely. But Solskjaer looked at his team and he realized that given the kind of penalty takers we had, he chose to prioritize to send in outfield players who could take the penalty. Because no one would know that this could become a 10-10 penalty affair, and at the end, goalkeepers would have to go and take the penalties themselves. So he was thinking that at least our first 5 penalties that we will have to take, that at least those penalties we can have players who are good at penalty takers. You'll have Juan Mata, Cavani, you have Bruno. So these players could just at least take the penalty away. And if it comes down to an 11th penalty, which rarely ever happens, then that is not something that you could account for. Yes, he could have taken, like the way Tim Krul went into the goal for 2014 World Cup, he could have had. But I think he chose to prioritize giving penalty takers a chance instead of a goalkeeper. And I think it would have really been very bad for De Gea if, from a psychological point of view, it was taken at the right towards the very end. And I don't think you really want that. And there is absolutely no guarantee that Dean Henderson would have done a better job. We discuss about this. We discuss about every single possibility in which that final could have been set up because we have lost the match. Had we won that penalty shootout, none of these discussions would have happened. We would have talked about how Manchester United set up, but we will never have talked about, okay, should Dean Henderson have gone in? Should this guy have benched? Should this guy have started? Should this have been somewhere else? We have lost, so there is a lot of revisionism involved. So yeah, I get where that point is coming from, but this is what I think Solskjaer decided to go with, and for better or worse, it did not work out.
Yeah, I agree. So moving on to defense, guys. Let's talk about the centre backs first. So Maguire and Lindelof, what do you think of that pair?
To be honest with you, from a fan perspective, it doesn't look too good. But to be very honest with you, stat-wise, they're not a bad pair, Maguire and Lindelof. And definitely Lindelof gets, more of the stick because he doesn't look like a Manchester United defender that we've, been used to having. And he probably isn't as well. But we realized the importance of Maguire when he got injured. He's played every minute of Premier League football from the time he came in, or at the beginning of last season, and he hasn't. Well, you could say he's put a couple of feet wrong here and there, but he's been so solid at the back that we've seen our defense improve. Even though we've conceded more goals this season, we do have a stronger foundation to build from. I saw a stat recently saying that was showing, I think, the top 50 players who are like progressive ball carriers through the field. And Maguire was the only defender in that list out of 50 players in the top 5 leagues of Europe. And I think that shows so much about how United have changed their style of play. Now they take the ball from the back, they move ahead, they create, they hold the ball, create possession for themselves. And then they like to create chances. They've gone from a counter-attacking team to breaking a low block defenses and, having the ball, liking to have the ball more. So we've really seen that with the players that we've had, Harry Maguire and Lindelof. When you look at the other centre-backs that we have at Manchester United, we have Eric Bailly, we have Jones, and we have Axel Tuanzebe. Now, Tuanzebe is probably an academy product. He's still developing. He hasn't, fully grown into himself. He's not fully established to make himself, a first-team starter. Then you have Phil Jones. I don't have much to say about Phil Jones. I don't know what he does, where he's training, to get injured so many times in training to not, actually have a game. I think his last game was when United played Clanmere Rovers, if I'm not mistaken, 6-0, the game that we won. But I think that was probably his last game for United, and I don't think he's played ever since. And he's been injured, apparently. I don't know what he does. And then when you see Eric Bailly, look, we have a good player in Harry Maguire, and then we have Victor Lindelof or Eric Bailly. Now, when you look at both the players, they say Victor Lindelof is Iceman, and Eric Bailly is definitely not Iceman. He's more, he's a little more rash, makes those decisions, will put his body on the line, but I think so will Victor Lindelof when the time comes. But yeah, I think Lindelof is the better of the two evils, let's put it that way, when it comes to Lindelof versus Bailly. They're a good pair, but if we need to win a title, this is not a pair that will take us to the title. We need Varane, we need someone else to really, challenge Maguire, challenge Lindelof for his position, really be that first team starter who complements Maguire's ability in the air, is fast on the ball, can play that crossfield ball from centre back to right wing or left wing. We really need that player at Manchester United.
Anshuman, anything you want to add to that? Agree, disagree?
Yeah, I mean, there's a very important point that Gaurav pointed out there, that someone who complements Harry Maguire, and that's it. That's the problem with the defense. That our best defender, Harry Maguire, does not play alongside our most important defender, who's Eric Bailly. And there are two reasons for that, because first of all, Eric Bailly is injury prone. So you cannot integrate a player in the starting 11 if he cannot make himself available all the time. And the player that he has to play alongside is Victor Lindelof. He is very much a player much like Harry Maguire himself. And another point that Gaurav pointed out, that he is one of the most important ball carriers in top-flight European football. And what he does when you look at his style of play, Maguire, the way he carries the ball, arrives at the left wing position and tries to become a focal point from where the ball arrives, where a ball arrives. You look at that style of play and you actually realize why Manchester City wanted to go for him in the first place, because that would have been absolutely fantastic for them, a defender who could bring the ball up. But since we don't have another defender that can keep that Harry Maguire run in check, that can support that Harry Maguire run, so that if a counter attack happens, then that there is another player that can another centre back alongside him, someone like Bai, who can keep that run in track in the running track, so that Harry Maguire can come back. And there is just one example that has stuck with my mind throughout the season. I'm pretty sure there are a lot, and that was in the first leg against Real Sociedad, where I think we were comfortably up ahead, but Harry Maguire was carrying the ball ahead. Sociedad had a chance for counter attack, and Alexander Isak absolutely ran, and there was no chance Harry Maguire could have come back. But what happened was we were playing Eric Bailly, and he was able to match Isak for the pace. He was able to reach him. He was able to delay him, trouble him long enough for Harry Maguire to come back, to dislodge him of the ball and save United a crucial moment. And that, in microcosm, was everything United needed in a centre back to cover Harry Maguire. What Lindelof does, on the other hand, is when Harry Maguire is out on his own adventure on the left-hand side, instead of keeping him in check, Lindelof is looking back for an opportunity to make a run himself. And that can work more or less against a team who are not really going to look for counter-attack. More often than not, that works. But when there are very few moments, like the match against Everton, where this did not work out, and a lot of other matches as well, where when the United counter-attack, when the United's opposition counter-attack, there's no one keeping it in check because Maguire is the other way. Lindelof is either wanting to go the other way or on another place himself. So there is no one to keep that in check. So that is the biggest problem with our centre backs we have had, that our best defender doesn't end up being best defender because he's not supported by that. And centre back pairing is absolutely crucial, as Gaurav pointed out, to make sure that you win titles. And that I say that they are incompatible doesn't mean that they're terrible and they don't work all the time. They work most of the time, which is why we have been able to secure the second position in the league. But they don't work. But they are not going to work enough for us to be winning anything. Like we actually realized Harry Maguire's the importance when he was not available in these last four matches. His absence was definitely felt in the Europa League final as well. So I think what this has done is it has made everyone realize how important Harry Maguire is. And he's not a bad defender because he costs 80 million or has 50 pace on FIFA. That's not how defense works. That's how football works in real life. He is very important. He's crucial. And if he can play alongside, in the long term, if he can play alongside to a defender that can actually complement his abilities instead of negating them, then we have a pretty solid defense option for ourselves. So yeah, I don't think Bailly offers that in the long run because of his injury issues. Lindelof is a good defender in his own right, and he can play as a second fiddle to Harry Maguire, but alongside him is always going to be a problem. Tuanzebe, I think he's a lot more composed player, a lot more calm player than both Bailly and Lindelof. But I think he still needs a couple of years regarding as far as his development is concerned. So that is where our centre backs are at, and that is why we keep on talking about our well-defined issues. And centre back is something that we really need to look at this summer.
Great points. Yeah. So let's switch to the sides now. Let's talk about the fullbacks. I don't know what has happened to Luke Shaw. Maybe it's the arrival of Telles. He has definitely transformed himself to the Luke Shaw that we all loved. And Wan-Bissaka is doing Wan-Bissaka things. And maybe he hasn't really improved so much as we expected him to from what we initially saw of him. But he has definitely, started going forward a lot. He's trying a lot of things, but maybe that communication with Greenwood is not really working out for him. So maybe that's where a Sancho or someone can come in and help. So what are your thoughts on the fullbacks? Anshuman, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. No issue. I think as far as Aaron Wan-Bissaka is concerned, I am not really worried about his development. He had one full season with Crystal Palace when he was transferred to Manchester United as a 21-year-old. And I think as far as his 2 years go, and he's still 23 now, I'm quite satisfied with his development. Because first season, he showed us that he is very good when it comes to tackling. And in his second season, he has established himself as one of the best tacklers in Europe. That doesn't really help his case to a great degree because his defensive positioning still leaves a lot to be desired because he can be got at. If you have that, if on that right hand side, on the opposition's left hand side, if you can manufacture a situation in which you can cut him out of position, then he's not really going to do much because position is an issue with him. His attacking output is something that I was very worried about before the start of the season, but I think that has improved. That hasn't improved enough to show a big difference, and the reason for that is the inert right hand side Manchester United has. Because I don't think any football side or any football manager can work a system in which work a squad in which you don't have an out and out right sided player itself. So because we don't have one, then a lot more onus has fallen on Aaron Wan-Bissaka to provide a lot more attacking output, and that is not his game. So even in a season where he has shown a lot more attacking intent, it hasn't been good enough because out there on the right hand side he does not have a support of someone who's out and out right hand sided player. Greenwood plays as an offshoot of a second forward. His future lies at a number 9 position. Daniel James, when it comes to breaking teams down, is not a right sided player. Rashford is not good enough on a right side. And when Juan Mata has never been a right-sided player, that is one of my pet peeves that we have never really utilized him in his time in the club. So we have played a whole season without a right-sided player, and I don't fixate on Jadon Sancho. I just fixate on the fact that we don't have a right-sided player, and I keep making that point because we need one. Any football manager you bring in, any team you walk into, a right side, these are the fundamental positions, like your fundamental colors, red, blue, and yellow. Like you cannot create anything else when you don't have your base going on for you. So that is always going to be crucial. And because of that, I think we look at Aaron Wan-Bissaka and we think that okay, he hasn't worked out that much. I think attacking wise he has a lot more to grow. Defensive positioning wise he has a lot more to learn. But I think both he has shown considerable growth both last season and this one for me to be satisfied with him. He's still a number 1 right back. And the fact that we don't have a good enough right back to back him up is a lot more case for worry because if he goes injured, he has played 54 matches for us this season in all competitions. When he goes injured, we can completely lose plot on another scale. So attacking wise, I think I have liked the fact that his early crossing has improved a lot this season. I think he takes a lot for incentives. That has also been increased because of the fact that we now finally have someone in Edison Cavani that can actually convert corners in the middle. We did not have anyone of the sort. And I think he takes a lot more intent in moving the ball around with his midfielders around him. I think he tries to make a lot more forward runs, maybe more so because you need some more output from the right hand side and we don't really have that. And when Greenwood plays, he likes to get inside to a central position so that Wan-Bissaka can occupy that part. So yeah, I think there is that as far as Wan-Bissaka is concerned. I think as far as his growth goes, I'm pretty satisfied with him. I think there's a lot more room, but of course he will grow. When it comes to the left hand side, when the season started, I was very intent on getting ourselves a new left back because I thought Luke Shaw was not going to cut it. And there were two names that I was sounding out even before we went for Sergei Reguilon, and even before that transfer fell through, which I think was for legitimate reasons, and I was on board with that. The two names I sounded out were Alex Telles and Nicolas Tagliafico. And the reason I said those two were because those two have been playing absolutely fantastic football from left side and have been one of the best left backs in their respective league. Telles was playing for Porto in the Liga NOS, and Tagliafico has been playing for Ajax in Eredivisie. They are both in the prime of their career. Tagliafico is now 29, Telles is now 28, and I was always saying that we need someone who can not only challenge Luke Shaw for that position, but completely slot himself up into a starting 11 because I thought that was going to happen. Telles did come, and from first day I was okay. This is our number one left back now. So I didn't really rate Luke Shaw, but what we have seen in that season, in this whole season, is that there is you can take all the analytics, you can do all of the tactical discourse, and at the end of the day, the entropy, the randomness of football will always prevail. It will always be the very factor that we keep coming back to this game, right? Because that's what Luke Shaw has been. He just needed that to pick up the backside, and once he had found that brilliant challenger in Alex Telles, he has absolutely reinvigorated his game. And I think Solskjaer deserves a lot of credit because of the way he has handled not only a lot of other players, but especially Luke Shaw. Because when you have that kind of ankle injury that can almost end your career, and then you have a time again with Jose Mourinho, in which you are completely berated left, right, and center, you are body shamed for the way you look, and that somehow is supposed to dictate how you are playing, and the amount of pressure and the amount of abuse he was getting, for him to be able to come back from that and establish himself as one of the best left backs as far as playing in a back four go, that is absolutely fantastic. And there is nothing you can take away from Luke Shaw, because his attacking output has been right up there as far as the attacking movements go. So absolutely fantastic. I think Telles has been our most important investment, because for 18 million pounds, we not only have ourselves a competent left back, but he has also given a lot more to Luke Shaw. And I have really been impressed with Luke Shaw's development this season. Yes, there have been a couple of instances, especially in the Europa League final, where he does end up missing the player he's supposed to mark. That happened with Gerard Moreno in the Villarreal final as well. So that is a couple of things that I think you can forgive him for, especially since the kind of season he has had. He's still 25, almost ready to go into 26. I think he has a lot more years ahead of him. And if this is just supposed to be the first season in which he came back into the form of his life, then I'm very excited to see where Shaw goes from here. So I think our left side situation is quite sealed up. But as far as Wan-Bissaka is concerned, I think we need to bring a more competent option because Brandon Williams, as good as he was in his first season, I don't think he has proved a lot more when he's playing as a right-sided wing back or a right-sided full back. So I think that leaves a lot to be desired. And because we have seen an injury with Harry Maguire, we cannot just take this fact for granted that Wan-Bissaka is going to play week in, week out. He's going to get injured somewhere down the line. You cannot not account for that. And you just need a second-sided player. You need a backup for Wan-Bissaka at the end of the day, no matter what happens. So yeah, that is where our fullbacks right now go. I'm quite satisfied with Wan-Bissaka. Absolutely excited for Luke Shaw. But the reinforcement-wise, that's not a priority. But I think that is something that we should be looking into.
All right, Gaurav, then what are your thoughts on our fullbacks?
Yeah, I think I agree with Anshuman to everything that he said. I think one or two things that I would add is if you do look at the stats, so to say, we all I guess everyone in the world considers Trent Alexander-Arnold as one of the best right backs in the league. But when you compare his numbers to say an Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and they say, oh, okay, Trent only knows how to attack and Wan-Bissaka knows only how to defend. When you look at the numbers, overall this season, both have had 2 goals each. Trent has had 9 assists and Wan-Bissaka has had 6 assists. So for a player who's only who defends, 6 assists and 2 goals is not a bad season for him. And if this is the point where he's only going to develop from here, like Anshuman said, I think I'm really excited to see what Wan-Bissaka can bring. And you can very, very clearly see that there has been an attacking improvement from him from the start of 2021. So I think it's great. I think we have like a fullback situation very well sorted out with Luke Shaw and Telles. Wan-Bissaka maybe needs a backup, a good backup. That's not Williams.